Suffering. All the sorrow and the grief that exist come from the world of matter. The spiritual world bestows only the joy. If we suffer, it is the outcome of material things, and all the trials and troubles come from this world of illusion. God alone ordereth all things, and is all-powerful. Why then does he send trials to his servants? The trials of man are of two kinds. A. The consequence of his own actions. If a man eats too much, he ruins his digestion. If he takes poison, he becomes ill or dies. If a person gambles, he will lose his money. If he drinks too much, he will lose his equilibrium. All these sufferings are caused by the man himself. It is quite clear, therefore, that certain sorrows are the result of our own deeds. B. Other sufferings there are, which come upon the faithful of God. Consider the great sorrows endured by Christ and by his apostles. If people only realized it, the inner life of the Spirit is that which counts, but they are so blinded by desires and so misled that they have brought upon themselves all the suffering we see at the present in the world. We are living in a day of reliance upon material conditions. Men imagine that the great size and strength of a ship, the perfection of machinery, or the skill of a navigator will ensure safety. But these disasters sometimes take place that men may know that God is the real protector. If it be the will of God to protect man, a little ship may escape destruction, whereas the greatest and most perfectly constructed vessel with the best and most skillful navigator may not survive a danger such as was present on the ocean. The purpose is that the people of the world may turn to God, the one protector, that human souls may rely upon his preservation and know that he is the real safety. These events happen in order that man's faith may be increased and strengthened. Let no one imagine that these words imply that man should not be thorough and careful in his undertakings. God has endowed man with intelligence so that he may safeguard and protect himself. Yet, withal, let him rely upon God and consider God as the one keeper. When thou lookest about thee with a perceptive eye, thou wilt note that on this dusty earth all humankind are suffering. Here no man is at rest as a reward for what he hath performed in former lives, nor is there anyone so blissful as seemingly to pluck the fruit of bygone anguish. And if a human life with its spiritual being were limited to this earthly span, then what would be the harvest of creation? Indeed, what would be the effects and the outcomes of divinity itself? Were such a notion true, then all created things, all contingent realities, and thus whole world of being, all would be meaningless. God forbid that one should hold to such a fiction and gross error. For just as the effects and the fruitage of the uterine life are not to be found in that dark and narrow place, and only when the child is transferred to this wide earth do the benefits and uses of growth and development in that previous world become revealed. So likewise reward and punishment, heaven and hell, requital and retribution for actions done in this present life will stand revealed in that other world beyond. And just as if human life in the womb were limited to that uterine world, existence there would be nonsensical, irrelevant. So too, if the life of this world, the deeds here done and their fruitage, did not come forth in the world beyond, the whole process would be irrational and foolish. Know then that the Lord God possesseth invisible realms which the human intellect can never hope to fathom, nor the mind of man conceive. When once thou hast cleansed the channel of thy spiritual sense from the pollution of this worldly life, then wilt thou breathe in the sweet scents of holiness that blow from the blissful bowers of that heavenly land. Physical pain is a necessary accompaniment of all human existence, and as such is unavoidable. As long as there will be life on earth, there will be also suffering, in various forms and degrees. But suffering, although an inescapable reality, can nevertheless be utilized as a means for the attainment of happiness. There is the interpretation given to it by all the prophets and saints who, in the midst of severe tests and trials, felt happy and joyous and experienced what is best and holiest in life. Suffering is both a reminder and a guide, It stimulates us to better adapt ourselves to our environmental conditions, and thus leads the way to self-improvement. In every suffering one can find a meaning and a wisdom, but it is not always easy to find the secret of that wisdom. It is sometimes only when all our suffering has passed that we become aware of its usefulness. What man considers to be evil turns often to be a cause of infinite blessings, and this is due to his desire to know more than he can. God's wisdom is, indeed, inscrutable to us all, and it is no use pushing too far trying to discover that which shall always remain a mystery to our mind. Man's physical existence on this earth is a period during which the moral exercise of his free will is tried and tested in order to prepare his soul for the other worlds of God. If we must welcome affliction and tribulations as opportunities for improvement in our eternal selves. All calamities and afflictions have been created for man so that he may spurn this mortal world, a world to which he is much attached. When he experienceth severe trials and hardships, then his nature will recoil, and he will desire the eternal realm, a realm which is sanctified from all afflictions and calamities. The mind and spirit of man advance when he is tried by suffering. The more the ground is plowed, the better the seed will grow, the better the harvest will be. Just as the plow furrows the earth deeply, purifying it of weeds and thistles, so suffering and tribulation free man from the petty affairs of this worldly life until he arrives at a state of complete detachment. To attain eternal happiness, one must suffer. He who has reached the state of self-sacrifice has true joy. Temporal joy will vanish. God hath never burdened any soul beyond its power. Tests are a means by which a soul is measured as to its fitness and proven out by its own acts. God knows its fitness beforehand, and also his unpreparedness. But man, with an ego, would not believe himself unfit unless proof were given him. Consequently, his susceptibility to evil is proven to him when he falls into tests, and the tests are continued until the soul realizes its own unfitness. Then remorse and regret tend to root out the weakness. The same test comes again in greater degree until it is shown that a former weakness has become a strength, and the power to overcome evil has been established. You seem to complain about the calamities that have befallen humanity. In the spiritual development of man, a stage of purgation is indispensable, for it is while passing through it that the overrated material needs are made to appear in their proper light. Unless society learns to attribute more importance to spiritual matters, it would never be fit to enter the golden era foretold by Baha'u'llah. The present calamities are part of this process of purgation. Through them alone will man learn his lesson. They are to teach the nations that they have to view things internationally. They are to make the individual attribute more importance to his moral than his material welfare. Suffering, of one kind or another, seems to be the portion of man in this world. Even the beloved ones, the prophets of God, have never been exempt from the ills that are to be found in our world. Poverty, disease, bereavement. They seem to be part of the polish God employs to make us finer, and enables us to reflect more of his attributes. No doubt in the future, when the foundation of society is laid according to the divine plan and men become truly spiritualized, a vast amount of our present ills and problems will be remedied. He who toil now are paving the way for a far better world, and this knowledge must uphold and strengthen us through every trial.